Hello, today I'm going to talk about the five main learning theories and how they have affected me in my own personal learning journey in my life, and which one of those I consider to be more or less effective, and to finish also, how do I apply them now as a teacher also. So let's start with the five main learning theories, and I've ordered them in base of what I consider to be the least flexible to the most flexible ones. So I will start with the behaviorist theory. Behaviorist basically is an old school style of learning, which is like if you do something wrong, there is a punishment. If you do something right, there is a prize for it, and is very repetition based. So a bit old school. Then comes cognitivism, where it's more about understanding mental processes, not more what is right or what is wrong automatically, but really understanding the logic of things. So it's a very logic based theory where the mental process is more important. The criticism here is that it doesn't consider the student as an individual and what kind of emotions or what kind of differences there are. In this theory, learning occurs on the brain and the brain works the same for everybody. Then we have also social cognitivism, which is kind of a little bit the same, but you add the social factor into it, which means people learn also by observation from others. So in this theory, the teacher has a very important role because it shows the way, it shows how it's done, and students learn a lot through observation. So this logical approach is done through observation also. The criticism here is very focused on observation and not so much into self-experimentation. So in this theory, you don't, as a student, you don't experiment by yourself, you just follow what the teacher is saying. Now we come to theories that are more flexible, and we have the constructivism. Constructivism, in my opinion, the most widespread and maybe most famous of the learning theories nowadays, where we say it is important to consider students as individuals and not everybody learns the same way. So the logic cannot be the same for everybody. And in this theory, students are encouraged to have more critical thinking, to explore things by themselves, problem solving. The teacher doesn't give you immediately the solution, but helps you to get there by yourself. And people can find which way fits them better till you get to the solution. You do this with group works, experimenting by yourself, and then critical thinking. You analyze yourself, like how did you get there, what have you learned. And then the humanistic, where we consider the individual even more. So in the humanistic theory, the view is that the individual is the most important. So in here, we take a lot of attention to the emotions of every person, to the personalities, and we say that every person is unique. So in this approach, the most important thing is what the student considers to be important. The student sets the goals. The student finds their own way of reaching the information and learning things. And the teacher works as a mediator to facilitate of this. So in this theory, there is a lot of self-reflection, self-goal setting, and a lot of the evaluations or the grades are very based on what the person's own opinion, how they did it. And the criticism here is that is harder to assess learning from a quantitative point of view. It's harder to really understand how much a student learned or not, because this question is very individual and depends on the person perspective. So it's just harder to measure, and this is the criticism, but of course it's more individual. Now, what I consider to be more effective or not, let's start with my own journey. I think I followed a little bit through the years also this evolution of we've went from the most strict theories to the most flexible ones. And I still remember in primary school back in Portugal over 30 years ago, we still had an old school system with a lot of dictations, with a lot of memorizing tables. So it was a lot like repetition and right, wrong. So was still very present in the school models back then. Then we evolved also with more. I've experienced cognitivism and social cognitivism later in school. It fitted me very well. I was a kind of person that I have a logical mindset, so the cognitivism theory fits me well. Social cognitivism, when teachers show me the way and then I know what I need to do, that is very efficient for me, and it has worked for me very well. And then later in life at university level, of course, I've experienced also the constructivism and humanist learning theories, because at university level, I feel you are expected to be more independent. You need to do more research. You need to find information by yourself. You work much more in groups. You have projects, and especially the last courses that I've done, I've noticed this increase on self-evaluation techniques, critical thinking, self-thinking, like what did I learn in this course, and how did I perform, and what did I thought of the process, which are things that I haven't experienced in them or in earlier stages of my learning curve. And I believe all these techniques are important for all levels, but of course, the same theory of constructivism and humanist, the critics there are that they require a bit more time. They are more time consuming when we need to experiment and when we need to, but they can be more efficient for some people. For me personally, I've thriven the most when someone shows me the way and I do it. When I need to find things by myself or experiment, I also learn, I also get there. So it's also positive. It's a different way of doing it, but in my opinion, a bit less effective because it requires, basically, I see it requires for me more time to get to the same conclusion. But again, for different students can be completely different. So how do I then use these theories in my classroom? I have to say, after doing this exercise and after doing a self-analysis, and this is why it's important also, I realized that we do have a bias, perhaps, to apply the same things that have worked for us. So I realized maybe social cognitivism is the theory that I use the most because it was effective for me. Maybe this is what I tend to do to my students. So I like, as a language teacher, that's what I do nowadays. I like to show the way. And also perhaps as a logical person, I focus a lot on grammar. I've learned several languages in my life, and grammar is what has helped me the most to get there. So I do focus on that. I like to explain and show the way to students first. And I also consider that repetition is very important to learn languages, especially for vocabulary. So I do use this repetition approach from the behaviorist theory also. But then I take also in consideration the constructivism theory, which is the most widespread, and I think is very important. So after I show the way to my students, after we work on repetition to make sure that they have the whole information, then I like to let them explore it, work with groups, and try to do different exercises to kind of break also the cognitism or the behaviorism approach that can be a bit repetitive and can kill the motivation also. It can work well on maybe a student like me that was effective, but if you have a different personality that doesn't fit you, can be a bit heavy, and it's good to bring diversity inside the classroom. And also because the constructivism theory takes more into consideration the individualities and the different characteristics of students. So I believe that's also very important to take into consideration, yes. So these were the 5 main theories, how I use them also. I hope you like my video, and please comment.